My boyfriend Ethan Blake was always busy with work. He set a rule with me that our dates couldn't exceed 1 hour. On our 5th anniversary, I went to the restroom during dinner. When I came back, he'd already paid the bill. He said impatiently, "This date has already gone 3 minutes over time. I don't have time to stay with you." I looked at the unopened cake sitting nearby. Calmly, I said, "Then I'll take a cab home myself. You don't need to give me a ride." But the next day, I saw a reminder on his phone. Cancel everything. Wait for Madison's call. So he did have time. He just didn't want to spend it on me. In that case, I wouldn't waste my life on him anymore. Ethan grunted in acknowledgement and turned to leave. No extra explanation. He didn't even look back at me once. The waitress approached. "Excuse me, Mr. Blake only paid for his portion." She paused, pushing another bill in front of me. "This is yours." I stared at the numbers on the bill, precise to the decimal point, my fingers slowly curling. Even our anniversary dinner, he wanted to split. I swiped my card calmly. Walking out of the mall, a torrential rain poured down. The icy rain hammered against me as I stood by the roadside, watching taxis with their occupied lights speed past. On my phone screen, the rideshare app's queue number didn't budge. I retreated back to the mall lobby and found a corner seat, sitting alone until it got dark. The rain gradually lessened, and I finally got a ride. Back at our apartment complex, even the short walk left me completely soaked. I opened the door in a sorry state. The living room lights were off, pitch black. Only a box of fresh lychees sat on the dining table. I found it strange. Ethan had never bought me fruit before and didn't know I liked lychees. The study door suddenly opened. Ethan said coldly, "Why did you call me earlier? That was my scheduled work time. I told you not to disturb me." I gripped my phone, the screen still showing the unanswered call from half an hour ago. The rain had been pouring then. I just wanted to ask if he could bring an umbrella and meet me at the complex entrance. Now I only said, "It was nothing. Don't do meaningless things like that again." He dropped that line. His gaze moved to the table. "Peel the lychees and put them in the fridge." I asked, "For whom?" A trace of impatience entered his voice. "A colleague." "Why are you asking so many questions?" "A colleague. Who else besides Madison?" The study door closed again. The living room was dark once more. I picked up the box of lychees, peeled one, and put it in my own mouth. I didn't touch anymore, left them as they were, and walked into the bathroom. When I came out after showering, Ethan was on the phone on the balcony. The door wasn't fully closed. His deliberately lowered voice drifted through the gap, carrying a gentleness and patience I'd never heard before. "The day after tomorrow morning, I have plans. Yeah, I can cancel them. Your car is more important. I'll wait for your call. Let me know when it's fixed." I leaned against the wall, staring blankly at the floor. The day after tomorrow morning was our long-scheduled visit to a traveling exhibition by a painter I really loved. The painter had visited 3 times. I'd missed every single one. This time I'd scheduled a month in advance to finally get time with Ethan. He said he hated unplanned events, but apparently he only hated unplanned me. When Ethan finished his call and returned to the bedroom, he saw several of my clothes draped over the closet door. They weren't hung neatly. The corners crossed the dividing line he'd set. He frowned. "Put them away properly. This is messy." I hummed softly in acknowledgement. Then I pulled out all the black, white, and gray clothes that matched Ethan's aesthetic and threw them in the trash. Ethan watched my actions, his face showing no ripples of emotion. He didn't ask why. He didn't say a word. He just turned over, his back to me, and went to sleep. The next day, I woke up burning with fever. Last night's rain had caught up with me after all. Ethan was already fully dressed, standing by the bed. "It's 7:15. You didn't prepare breakfast according to plan and disrupted my morning schedule." My head was splitting. I tried to sit up, but my vision kept going black. He unlocked his phone screen and tapped on his notes app a few times. "Your relationship behavior score, -5 points." I walked out of the bedroom in a daze. On the dining table was his finished breakfast plate. Fried eggs, toast, milk, the same as his usual. But there was no plate for me. In the laundry basket, the shirt and dress pants he'd changed out of yesterday were gone, but my soaked dress still lay there quietly. He'd only washed his own clothes. I forced myself to take a cab to the nearest hospital. The emergency room was noisy and chaotic. I felt weak all over from the fever. The doctor prescribed medication and put me on an IV drip. After taking my temperature, she said, 102.5 degrees. "We need a family member to stay with you and sign." I gripped my phone, hesitating for a long time before finally calling Ethan. The phone rang for ages before someone picked up. "What is it?" My voice was hoarse. "I'm at the hospital. I have a fever. The doctor says they need a family member. You've seen my schedule. This morning is completely booked." He cut me off. "It'll only take a little of your time. Just to sign." Silence on the other end for a few seconds. "I can spare 40 minutes at most. 20 minutes round trip from the office to the hospital. 20 minutes for care." I closed my eyes and said softly, "Okay. Could you buy me a hot water bottle from the hospital convenience store?" The call ended. A moment later, my phone buzzed. It was a link to a delivery app from Ethan. "You can order one for delivery." 10 minutes later, Ethan appeared in the ward right on time. He signed the form, took out his laptop, and started working. The medication dripped into my body drop by drop. My arm was numb with cold. Looking at Ethan's tightly pressed lips nearby, I didn't speak. I ordered a hot water bottle. The nurse came to change the IV and saw my hand, frowning. "Why is it so swollen? Are you allergic?" Only then did I notice my hand was covered in a large red rash, itchy and painful. Just then, Ethan's phone alarm went off. He closed his laptop, didn't even glance at me, stood up and left. I instinctively called out, "Ethan, my hand." He stopped and looked back at my swollen hand. "Time's up. I have an important industry conference this afternoon." Then he turned and walked away. The nurse, unable to watch anymore, pressed the call button for me. An elderly woman in the next bed handed me a hot water bottle. "Here, dear, use mine." The doctor and nurses rushed over, changing my IV and treating the allergic reaction. I lay alone in the hospital bed, enduring the worst hours. By evening, the fever finally broke a little. I leaned against the headboard, mindlessly scrolling through my phone. On Instagram, Madison had posted several updates that afternoon. Every post showed Ethan playing with her golden retriever. In the photos, his face showed a smile, patient and focused. I looked at the swelling swelling on my hand that still hadn't gone down and the bruises left by the IV. Then I opened a secondhand trading platform. I listed the matching smartwatch Ethan had specially customized for me, that electronic shackle designed to accommodate all his schedules, reminding me every moment what I should be doing. I didn't need it anymore. After leaving the hospital, I packed up everything I'd bought according to Ethan's preferences, one by one. His preferences, the rules he'd set, his whole aesthetic, all went into boxes. The apartment was half empty, but I felt an indescribable lightness. At dawn, when Ethan got up, he didn't find the glass of water at the perfect 113-degree temperature on his nightstand. Walking into the closet, there was no ironed shirt either. He habitually checked his watch. "Your slacking today has delayed my morning routine by 8 minutes." I sat at the dining table, eating the pancakes and coffee he'd never allowed me to touch. Steaming hot, it was a long mist aroma of real food. I didn't even look up. "That's your own problem." Ethan's face darkened. He probably thought I was still throwing a tantrum about our anniversary. He said nothing more, got his own water, and found his own clothes with a cold face, then slammed the door on his way out. That afternoon, the door lock clicked. Ethan had brought Madison home. He had a strong sense of territory and had set a hard rule against letting outsiders into the apartment. Once my best friend was going through a breakup and came to stay for just one night, and he sent her away on the spot with a cold face. But now, Madison was wearing my slippers, sitting on my couch as if she owned the place. She held a box of ice cream. Cream dripped onto the carpet, leaving large stains. Ethan saw it. He just walked over and gently handed her a wet wipe. "Be careful. Don't get it on your hands." Not a hint of reproach. But last time when I accidentally spilled a few drops of coffee, he threw away my entire coffee set, along with the coffee beans I'd painstakingly collected from all over the country. I ignored them, continuing to pack my things, putting the last few books into a box. Madison stood up curiously and walked straight into my studio. "Wow, you're so talented." The paint I'd arranged by color system according to Ethan's requirements was now a mess from her handling. She held a cup of coffee, walking with interest toward my easel. The next second, her hand tilted. An entire cup of coffee spilled onto the painting I'd spent 6 months on. That was my work. I'd prepared for half a year to enter it in a competition. Hearing the commotion, Ethan came in. Seeing the mess everywhere, he blamed me first. "I told you to take proper protective measures." Then he softly comforted Madison. "It's just a worthless piece of paper with no commercial value. No big deal if it's ruined." Looking at the painting, completely disfigured by coffee stains, I felt not even a trace of heartache. I picked up the painting and stuffed it into the paper shredder in the corner. The machine roared to life. I looked at Ethan's shocked face and smiled calmly. "You're right. Just waste paper. Should have thrown it out long ago." That evening, Ethan did something rare and apologized to me. "I didn't mean your painting was garbage," he explained. "I was just trying to comfort Madison. Make a list of whatever materials you need to repaint. I'll have someone get them." How rare. In the past 5 years, he'd never cared what I lacked or needed for painting. In fact, he didn't even know what I was painting. This concern I'd waited so long for finally arrived, but I only found it annoying. I turned over and refused. No need. The next day, I had to pick up my grandmother's belongings. Ethan had promised to take me, but with Madison around, I didn't expect him to actually go with me. But Ethan kept reminding me from the moment he woke up. "We're going to get your grandmother's things later. Don't be late." He paused and added, "Even if you're late, it's fine. I've cleared my whole morning." I looked at the inexplicable emotion in his eyes, not understanding what it was. Guilt? I'd lost more than just one painting over 5 years. Why bother? On the way to the watch shop, Ethan's phone rang. It was Madison. With tears in her voice, she said the exhibition model she was responsible for had the wrong dimensions, and the client was giving her hell on site. She urgently needed Ethan to come support her. According to Ethan's rule of never getting involved in other people's basic mistakes, he should have refused. Just like he'd refused to bring me my admission ticket, causing me to miss the Research Institute exam. But I knew. The caller was Madison. Sure enough, without a moment's hesitation, Ethan made an illegal U-turn right on the highway bridge. Sharp honking erupted behind us. I watched the route on the GPS instantly veer off course and reminded him, "The watch shop closes at 5. His voice was ice cold. "A broken watch won't disappear if you pick it up late, but Madison's project involves millions in company profits. Your emotional outbursts are seriously interfering with my efficiency. Can't you tell which is more important?" The car stopped outside the exhibition hall. The sky had darkened at some point, and rain began to fall. Ethan unbuckled his seatbelt. "Wait in the car. I'll be quick. I'll take you to get the watch as soon as I'm done." With that, he locked the car and walked toward Madison, who was waiting anxiously at the entrance. I watched the time on the dashboard tick by, second by second. 45 minutes passed. 2 hours passed. The sky grew dark. Through the blurred rain, I could see Ethan on the second floor by the floor-to-ceiling windows, bent over, patiently helping Madison revise blueprints. On the table sat an elegant dessert box he'd specially ordered for Madison, but in the car, there wasn't even a bottle of water, that alarm of his that always went off on time, reminding him which step of his schedule to proceed with. For Madison, he'd turned it off too.
I stared at the message for a long time. Then I opened my contacts. Not Ethan. Not anyone who could drive me. I called the watch shop owner directly. "Hello, Mr. Harris," I said softly. "Don't leave tomorrow morning. I'll be there when you open." The old man sounded surprised. "I thought your husband was bringing you tonight." I looked through the rain-smeared windshield at Ethan and Madison laughing over blueprints. "He won't be coming." There was a brief silence. Then the owner sighed. "Your grandmother came here every month for years to maintain that watch. She told me someday she'd pass it to you." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Don't worry. I'll keep it safe." After hanging up, I sat quietly for another 10 minutes. Then I unlocked the car door. Ethan had forgotten one thing. The child's safety lock only worked from the inside. I stepped into the rain and left. I didn't send him a message. Didn't call. Didn't explain. For 5 years, I'd reported every movement of my life like an employee filing work logs. For once, I disappeared. At 11:30 that night, Ethan finally finished helping Madison. He rubbed the bridge of his nose and glanced at his watch. 7 hours. Far longer than expected. But he'd solved the problem. Efficient. As always. He walked toward the parking lot. Then stopped. The passenger seat was empty. For the first time that day, a faint crease appeared between his brows. He took out his phone. No messages. No missed calls. Nothing. He called me. The mechanical voice answered. The number you are trying to reach is unavailable. His expression darkened. A few minutes later, he arrived home. The apartment was dark. Silent. Empty. Not the peaceful silence he preferred. A strange silence. He turned on the lights. Half the furniture was gone. The bookshelves were empty. The paintings were gone. The coffee machine he'd hated was gone. The colorful cushions he'd always complained about were gone. Only then did he notice something sitting neatly on the dining table. A folder. Inside was a single sheet of paper. At the top, Relationship Behavior Score Report. Below it, rows and rows of deductions. Missed anniversary. -20. Ignored hospital emergency. -50. Prioritized Madison over family obligations. -30. Destroyed emotional trust. -100. At the bottom. Current score, -4,783. Disqualified. Relationship terminated. No appeal process. For the first time in years, Ethan froze. Because the format was identical to the scoring system he'd invented for me. The difference was that mine only ever lost points. His started at 0. And there was no way to earn any back. The next morning he arrived at the watch shop alone. The owner handed him a small velvet box. You finally came. Ethan frowned. Where is she? The old man looked at him strangely. You don't know. Know what? The owner opened the box. Inside lay an antique silver pocket watch. On the back was a handwritten note. In shaky elderly handwriting. To my precious granddaughter. May every hour of your life belong to you. Not to someone else's schedule. The shop owner shook his head. Your grandmother left that before she passed. She spent years saving for its restoration. She told me your husband was very busy. She hoped this watch would remind you that your time mattered too. Ethan stared at the words. Something sharp pierced through his chest. For years he'd measured everything in minutes. Efficiency. Productivity. Schedules. But suddenly those words felt absurd. Because the person who had spent 5 years giving him her time was gone. 3 days later, he finally discovered where I'd gone. My best friend answered the door. The same friend he'd thrown out of our apartment years ago. What do you want? I need to see her. No. I need to explain. She laughed. Actually laughed. Then she handed him a thick envelope. What is this? 5 years. Ethan opened it. Inside were hundreds of receipts. Hospital visits. Birthday dinners eaten alone. Movie tickets for one. Train tickets unused because he'd canceled. Exhibition reservations missed. Competition registrations abandoned. Each page represented something I had given up. At the very bottom was a photograph. It showed me asleep in a hospital chair. For still attached. Head leaning against the wall. No family beside me. The timestamp was from the day he'd left after exactly 40 minutes. His hand began trembling. For the first time in his life, Ethan had data. Cold. Objective. Undeniable. The evidence proved one thing. He had not been a busy husband. He had been a neglectful one. Meanwhile, my life began moving forward. I rented a sunny studio. Started painting again. Entered competitions again. Drank coffee whenever I wanted. Slept whenever I wanted. For the first few weeks, I kept expecting my phone alarms to go off. Expected reminders telling me where to stand and how to behave. But nothing happened. The silence felt strange. Then wonderful. Months later, one of my paintings won first prize at a national exhibition. Reporters surrounded me afterward. One asked, what inspired this work? I looked at the giant canvas behind me. It showed a woman stepping out of a clock made of shattered gears. Into sunlight. Into freedom. I smiled, learning that my time has value. Across the exhibition hall, hidden among the crowd, Ethan stood motionless. He'd come too late. Again. The applause thundered around the room. But none of it belonged to him. And for the first time, he finally understood the lesson my grandmother had left behind. Money could be earned back. Projects could be redone. Schedules could be rearranged. But the years he'd wasted treating love like a business contract, those were gone forever. And this time, no amount of efficiency could get them back. Ethan didn't move when the crowd shifted around him. People brushed past his shoulders, celebrating, laughing, congratulating me without noticing him standing there like a misplaced object in a life he used to schedule. He finally stepped forward. Slow, careful, like the floor might tilt if he moved too quickly. I was still speaking to a reporter when I saw him. Our eyes met. For a second, nothing else existed. Then I looked away first. Not sharply. Not angrily. Just as if he were a detail I no longer needed to file away. That small gesture did more damage than anything else. He understood that immediately. After the exhibition, I left through the side exit. No security, no entourage. Just me and the quiet hum of the city outside. I adjusted the strap of my bag and started walking. Madison. His voice came from behind me. I didn't stop. He followed. Not like the Ethan I knew before, efficient, decisive, always ahead of time. Now he looked uncertain. Slightly unmoored, like someone whose internal map had stopped matching the world. I didn't know you were coming here, he said. I finally paused at the curb. That's the point, I replied. A car passed between us, briefly breaking the line of sight. When it was gone, he was still there. I've been looking for you, he said. I know. You changed your number. I did. You moved out of the apartment. Yes. A silence stretched between us. The kind he used to fill with instructions and time limits. Now he had nothing to say that could fit neatly into it. His voice lowered. I saw your painting. I nodded once. Congratulations. That's all you have to say? I turned to him fully for the first time. It wasn't anger in my face. That confused him more than anger would have. It won first prize, I said calmly. That's what matters. A flicker crossed his expression. Like he wanted to argue. Like he wanted to correct the situation. Like he still believed there was a formula that could fix this conversation. But there wasn't. I didn't realize, he said finally, that you were unhappy. That sentence hung there. Heavy. Almost insulting in its simplicity. I almost smiled. You had time logs for everything else, I said. Just not that. His jaw tightened. I thought I was being responsible. I thought. You thought I fit into your schedule, I finished for him. He stopped. For once, he didn't interrupt. Didn't calculate. Didn't adjust. Just stood there, absorbing it. I can change, he said suddenly. Fast. Too fast. Like a system rebooting. I can reduce my workload. I can adjust priorities. I can. That's not what this is, I interrupted gently. That gentleness hurt him more than anything else I'd said. Because it wasn't emotional. It was final. I didn't leave because you were busy, I continued. I left because I stopped existing inside your life unless I was convenient. His hands curled slightly at his sides. I didn't mean it that way. I know, I said. A pause. Then, quieter. That's the problem. The wind shifted between us. Somewhere nearby, a traffic light changed. People crossed. Life continued. He didn't. For the first time, Ethan looked like someone standing outside his own system. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted. It sounded foreign coming from him. Unstructured. Unmeasured. I nodded slightly, almost kindly. You don't have to fix it. That made him look up sharply. I adjusted my bag again. I already did. Another silence. Longer this time. Less tense. More empty. I still don't understand, he said, almost to himself. Everything was efficient. Everything worked. I looked at him for a final moment. You weren't building a relationship, I said softly. You were managing a schedule that happened to include a person. Then I turned away. Just movement forward. The simplest thing in the world. And for the first time in his life, Ethan didn't know what time to follow. I didn't look back again. Not because I was strong in some dramatic, cinematic way, but because there was nothing behind me worth recalculating. My life, for the first time, wasn't being measured in someone else's units. Months passed like that. Quietly. Cleanly. No alarms dictating when I should wake up. No spreadsheets disguised as affection. No one correcting the inefficiency of how I poured coffee or how long I stayed in a bath. At first, I kept expecting a crash. A moment where the absence of him would feel like withdrawal. But it never came. Instead, something else filled the space. Routine not imposed, but chosen. The studio I rented had wide windows that caught the morning light in soft gold. I learned to paint at night with music playing too loud, just because I liked it that way. I left brushes on tables. I left paint stains on my sleeves. I stopped apologizing to furniture. My work changed. Not because I was trying to prove anything, but because nothing was interrupting me anymore. The first painting I completed after leaving him wasn't planned for a competition. It was just honesty. A woman sitting in an empty room, cutting invisible strings that had once held her wrists in place. I didn't name it. I didn't need to. One afternoon, I received a message from the gallery. Another exhibition request. Then another. Then an international invitation. Each one asked for a story behind the work. I always wrote the same line. I stopped living on borrowed time. It was enough. People sometimes asked about him. They were careful about it, like stepping near a closed door. I never gave them much. Not out of bitterness. But because he had become something simple in my memory. A chapter that taught me precision without presence is still emptiness. A year later, I stood on a small stage in another city, accepting a second award. Different country. Different language in the crowd. Same feeling in my chest. Not triumph. Just steadiness. After the applause faded, someone asked me if I would dedicate the work to anyone. I paused. Then I said, to the version of me that used to wait. No hesitation. No sadness. Just truth. That night, I walked back alone through unfamiliar streets. The air was cool. The city lights blurred into soft reflections on wet pavement. My phone buzzed once. A notification I didn't recognize. No urgency. No demand. Just a calendar reminder someone had once set for me years ago, still active, still obedient. I stared at it. Then deleted it. Just finally. And when I reached my apartment, I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and didn't think about anyone's schedule at all. For the first time in a long time, my life didn't wait for permission to continue.